The rupee, the falling value of the rupee is significant. But ladies and gentlemen, it's only the peg. It tells the bigger story. Pink paper after pink paper is talking about the gloom ahead for the Indian economy, cribbing about the lack of political leadership at this point of time, able to take tough decisions. And joining me tonight, therefore, to debate that, but let me say right at the start, as I welcome Manish Tiwari, Lok Sabha Member of Parliament, and Congress Party spokesperson. His debating partner tonight from the BJP is the BJP's Rajya Sabha Member of Parliament and National Treasurer, Piyush Goyal. Thank you very much. Piyush, thanks Manish. I want to begin by saying this chat is not just about the rupee. But when the rupee falls so low, Manish, bigger questions will be asked. And bigger questions are being asked right now. This is not about the rupee. It is not about global factors alone. It's about the fallout of an ineffective decision-making process in UPA 2. I would like you to defend first your position before I get Piyush in.
No, Arnab, I entirely agree with you that, if there's pressure on the rupee, there is reason for concern. And I think the finance minister was very forthright and upfront when he was replying to the finance bill in the Rajya Sabha earlier in the afternoon, when he said that, yes, insofar as oil imports are concerned, insofar as the situation in Europe, especially if Greece decides to opt out of the euro. And you're right, because there are domestic factors also. There is certain legislation, which corporate India has been looking at, pension, banking, insurance. Some of it has come back from the standing committee. We do require the cooperation of the Bharatiya Janata Party and other opposition parties to be able to.
We've heard that for too long. We've heard that for too long. What decisions are you willing to go through? Your government decided in the last budget, Manish. In this last budget, your government, after the budget, when we spoke to the finance minister promised some action following the budget, did not put a date to it. I want you to put a date to it tonight. When will you take the tough decisions that your government itself promised to change the image of a government that is not strong enough to take reforms action?
Well, I think, Arnab, let me disabuse that notion straight off that this is a government which is incapable of taking decisions, which is absolutely incorrect in a different context, in a different sphere. The decision to launch the Agni 5, which has geostrategic implications, as you are aware of, is not the act of a weak government. But insofar as
that has nothing to do with what we are discussing.
I'm coming to that. Insofar as financial legislation is concerned, financial legislation requires a certain amount of consensus building, a certain amount of the opposition also extending constructive support, whether it is the goods and services tax, whether it is, the big ticket reforms which corporate India is looking at. The fact is that it cannot go through till the time the opposition does not cooperate. So therefore, I would expect the opposition, to now measure up, walk the extra mile. Yes, they have a right to oppose, but beyond political opposition, there is something called larger national interest, and in larger national interest, when the global economy is sluggish, there is a need to close ranks and there is a need to demonstrate multi-partisanship and go forth.
But tonight we want that larger national interest displayed. Because if we don't, then we are taking the rupee down the way of the currency of the East African nations. Piyush is responding to your question of larger national interest. Piyush.
Arnab, I spoke at length yesterday in the Rajya Sabha on the finance bill, and I raised several large issues about the state of the economy, the policy paralysis that all of you talk about on television, and corporate India and the common people are worried about. Also about the policy flip-flop, the way this government has taken decisions, supposedly according to Manish in national interest, but clearly causing a lot of damage to the faith and confidence of investors, not only in India, but worldwide. The situation as it prevails today, and we heard the Honorable Finance Minister in the Rajya Sabha replying to the debate, a very statesmanly, very good speech, something which can go down in history as one of the finest speeches in the Rajya Sabha. But in terms of content, we did not hear anything.
Name the content.
The content was more about the fact...
Name the content that you want, Piyush Goyal.
The content that I want is that this government is willing to act, this government is willing to come to Parliament with a series of legislations in consultation and along
This Parliament session is gone, Piyush Goyal.
This session is gone, but they have not engaged with us.
This Parliament session ends next Tuesday.
Arnab, I met the finance minister before the Parliament session started. I talked to him about pension, banking, insurance.
And what did you do?
Yes, I'll tell you very clearly.
No, my question is, one sec, I'll get Manish back. I want to ask you clearly here. Because what did you do on pensions?
On pension,
what did you do on aviation? What did you do on insurance?
Fair enough.
What did you do on FDI in aviation, for example?
Every one of them I can answer. On pension, this government introduced the bill without taking its allies on board. They were not even having a floor management to get that bill introduced. It would have been got defeated at the introduction stage in the Lok Sabha. It was thanks to the sagacity of our leader, Mrs. Sushma Swaraj, who supported that bill on that crucial day, breaking opposition rank in national interest and supporting the introduction. We have no problem. Why don't they bring the pension bill? We are ready to pass it tomorrow. Let them bring the bill.
I'm sorry, but you're all discussing cartoons in Parliament.
We are discussing cartoons, but they have not got the pension bill.
Today, as the country's economy is going down the drain.
Yes, they should introduce good legislation. Why are they not in
Parliament discussing cartoons?
Well, they are not taking their allies on board. They have not introduced pension. They have not introduced banking. They have not introduced insurance. These homelies will not work. This bogey, we had Pakistan as a bogey once upon a time. Now it's the opposition. First, let them set their house in order. Let them get their allies on board. They discussed insurance. They came to us in the standing committee. What a lousy presentation. The entire standing committee, comprising all political parties with a majority of UPA members, was convinced at the end of the discussion that we should not allow FDI and insurance to be increased beyond 26%. And then their own cabinet, they could not draw up a consensus.
So they lack the will. Why can't the BJP and the Congress come together? Forget the allies.
Well, it doesn't work.
Forget the allies. No, one second.
It won't work that way.
Why won't it work that way?
Well, it worked in pension.
Parliament works on numbers.
Let them bring the pension. Let them bring insurance.
Parliament works on numbers, Piyush.
Yes.
So, you say tonight that on all the issues that the Congress is having trouble with its allies for, namely insurance, that you will stand by them. Well, and together the Congress and the BJP, just the Congress and the BJP have how many seats?
Well, it doesn't work that way.
It does work
Government doesn't work in terms of
Parliament works
wherever
by simple
it suits
majority.
them, wherever it suits them, they will talk to us. They'll talk of national interest and consensus. And wherever it is inconvenient, they will take the allies' support and get us out of the way. It doesn't work that way.
Manish Tiwari, I have heard this before, but tonight the situation is more serious. January last year, rupee at 44 rupees. 44 rupees to a dollar. Tonight, it is 55 point something to a dollar. Is your government aware of the path that India is going through economically and how serious the situation is? Why don't you let your ego problem with the BJP aside for a moment? Let the ego problem be forgotten, keep the nation first, work together with the BJP, push the legislation.
Well, I think, Arnab, there is absolutely no dispute with regard to that. After the harangue which Mr. Piyush Goyal subjected us to, notwithstanding that, I decided not to interrupt him and to, let him go full stream without being interrupted. But allow me to point out that these legislations are pending with the standing committee. They sent the direct taxes code back only 2 weeks before the budget session of Parliament was to commence. The finance minister has said, we will apply our mind to the direct taxes code, we will come back to Parliament in monsoon. Insofar as the other financial legislations are concerned, banking and pensions, it is still pending with the standing committee. Insofar as the goods and services tax is concerned, we've debated it ad nauseum that there are externalities which were attached to the passage of that bill. So therefore, rather than lecture to Arnab, hear me out. Rather than lecture to the whole wide world and their grandmother as to how constructive they are, let them walk the talk. If the BJP
direct tax code.
No, if the Piyush, I did not interrupt you, so therefore have the patience to listen.
Okay.
So if the Bharatiya Janata Party believes that yes, the economy is in trouble, there is a need, for all of us to work together. So demonstrate it, by rising above parties and politics, by not resorting to this argument that when we are required, we are used and then we are dumped when the allies are available. You know, the finance minister has very categorically said that all of us today need to work together. He even talked about austerity measures.
You cannot say you support us on banking and pension.
Again, Piyush, I know the truth is unpalatable. But I think if you develop the patience to listen to somebody else, you know, the finance minister today went to the extent of saying that, you know, even austerity measures may have to be resorted to. While I'm not pressing the panic button, but I am expressing my concern. So therefore, as a responsible opposition, after all, you also have a commitment to larger national interests. Support us on pensions, support us on banking, support us on insurance. Let's get the goods and services tax through. It requires a constitutional amendment, and let's get the direct taxes code through, and the whole environment will change. The sentiment will change.
Pension is already out of the
pension is already with us, but the rest is still in the standing committee.
They are unable to bring it because their allies are not supporting it. DTC report has been
allies also,
hailed
Piyush, you must understand, allies also at times have their own political understanding. You know, you cannot belittle those allies. After all, these very people, Piyush, were your allies also in the NDA. So therefore, let me not go back from 1999 to 2004, and let me also not remind you about the kind of trouble you had and allies walking in and out. So
gentlemen, can I bring a reality check?
Allies are a reality. Allies are a reality. They don't come from the same political understanding.
Yeah, when I started talking, you also interjected.
You know, step up to the plate. Yes. You know, the world, the global economy is in difficulty. You know, if we have to, you know, keep the Indian economy going, if we have to keep the wheels turning, you know, there is a need to demonstrate statesmanship.
Manish,
so that's
Manish,
what we are
answer the
asking you to
question
do.
straight tonight, please.
No, but pension is already with them. Insurance report is with them. What does he mean by standing committee? DTC report is the most widely hailed standing committee report.
You know something, Piyush?
If only finance minister had waited a few days.
Piyush, you know, this passing the buck, with all respect, now you're both right from both points of view, from your points of view. But with all respect to both of you, and you're fantastic spokespersons from your parties, conveniently tonight, both of you are passing the buck.
Not at all.
You're passing the buck.
I'm committing myself,
because the bigger picture is that, you see, and you understand economics fairly well. You have this situation with the rupee. You're a chartered accountant.
Very serious.
You have this situation with the rupee, and on top of that, you are seeing what's happening on oil. What are we? We want to put India down the tube.
Yes, but Arnab, when the government comes out with such policies,
your rupee is falling. Your oil imports are going up.
Correct.
And I'm asking, therefore, tonight, I'm asking Manish Tiwari whether, I have two questions on oil subsidies. I'm asking Manish Tiwari, the question is not whether, but when your government will fulfill its own promise to itself of diluting oil subsidies. When will you do it?
Well, Arnab, insofar as food, fuel and fertilizer subsidy is concerned, you know, I think in the previous budget, in this budget and the previous budget, you know, government has taken steps in order to try and modify those or try and sort of bring the subsidy burden down. But
no, on fuel specifically,
on
let me give you an example why I'm asking you this, because after the last budget...
On fuel specifically, allow me to answer that. If you recall, you know, when the finance minister decided to reimpose customs duty on fuel that we are importing, after having withdrawn it, you know, because of the economic downturn, you had the unprecedented situation of the opposition walking out from the finance minister's budget speech. This is the first time probably it happened in
on oil
the 60
subsidies,
years
you have Mamata Banerjee under control.
So therefore, yes, you know, we are prepared to bite the bullet. We are prepared to bite the bullet. You know, let them also demonstrate non-partisanship and not play politics with it.
Do you have Mamata Banerjee under control? Do you have Mamata Banerjee under control of the issue of oil prices?
Let me tell you, Arnab, go back to the June of 2008, when international prices started rising. They reached an unsustainable level. You had the left, which was supporting the government. Left, as you know, has been very, very sensitive on the question of fuel price hike. Still, we went ahead and raised prices. So therefore, we are prepared to bite the bullet in the larger national interest. But all that we ask other people is not to play politics with it.
Manish, I wouldn't go back to 2008. I would go back to 2011. And in fact, on the 2nd of March 2011, in an interview to Times Now, the finance minister then said, Mr. Minister, what happened on retail and the FDI and retail? And he said, these are some measures that we will include, we will do in the course of the financial year. Then the budget of 2012 came, and hold your heart and ask yourself, who's stopping you tonight from diesel price?
Again, I think,
it's because you're afraid.
Again,
the political onslaught.
Again, Arnab, I think you're trying to compare apples and pears. You know, multi-brand FDI and the multi-brand FDI and oil imports are two different issues. They're as different as chalk and cheese. So let's not compare the two. Multi-brand FDI does not have an impact on your import bill. You know, oil imports have a definite impact on your import bill. So therefore, you know, when it reaches a critical point, you obviously will have to bite the bullet. All that we are expecting from the opposition is then don't go to town and don't hold Bharat Bandhs and say that this government is trying to put, put pressure on the Aam Aadmi. Then say that it was required in national interest and the government has done the right thing. Then demonstrate that statesmanship. That is what we are saying.
Manish, I am very happy that you have at least acknowledged that you are sensitive to Bharat Bandhs. But the fact of the matter is...
Well, we are sensitive to your parties and politics, my friend.
The subsidy problem has reached this pass only because of mismanagement of the economy.
One second, forget mismanagement of the economy. Well, you tell me what is your position.
Yes,
you tell
I'll
me.
Explain.
No, one second.
There was no reason for the rupee to devalue so much.
You see, the problem is, don't qualify everything you're saying, Piyush, by saying misgovernance by the
I'll explain to you.
No, one second. Don't qualify everything by saying misgovernance of the UPA.
I'm
asking you tonight, please stare the camera straight in the eye.
Absolutely.
Stare Manish Tiwari back and tell Manish Tiwari and tell the country that if tomorrow the UPA takes the tough action on diesel prices, one second, which will send the right impact out but will affect the Aam Aadmi. Tomorrow if the UPA takes the action on retail, taking on Mamata Banerjee, tomorrow if the UPA takes action on banking and insurance, then you will not hold Bharat Bandhs on it. Because tonight, the government is terrified of the political impact of your doing something.
I'll explain each one of these. On oil price, we are convinced...
Overall.
I'll explain all 5 of the issues you've raised. On oil price, we are convinced it is because of the mismanagement of the government. And I'll explain why.
Not taking a position again, Piyush.
No, I'll tell you the position. Why did the rupee have to slide 20% and make our oil imports costlier? Why should oil have excise duties and customs ad valorem rather than having him on a specific rate? When the rupee is devaluing and the foreign rates are going up.
Come on, I asked you a simple question, you're making it complex.
They are collecting the money on one hand.
I asked you a simple question.
The subsidies going up.
No, but you know, you're a chartered accountant. Now you're running a logic sheet through an Excel sheet and you're making it so complicated. I asked a simple question
tonight. The finance minister said the landed price of oil is 36
My question to you...
Why does it have to be 73 rupees in the market?
Piyush, I am asking you tonight, simple question. If you are a chartered accountant, I'm asking you, does the company make loss or profit? And you are saying 1 minute, I will answer that question later. I'll come to it later. But I'll first tell you what is the CAGR, what is the P ratio, what is the share value.
If I throw away the money into the sea and I don't run my company well and it makes losses, my customers are not going to increase the price and make me pay for my inefficiency.
I didn't expect Piyush Goyal to avoid my question.
Well, why should I pay for somebody else's inefficiency?
I am asking you tonight, will you support a rationalization of diesel prices? Will you support FDI in retail? Two questions.
FDI in retail, our position is very clear. We will not support it.
Diesel?
Because we have said they have to first strengthen the manufacturing base in India.
Diesel, bite the bullet. Diesel.
On diesel, this government has to first make up its mind.
Forget the government. What is your position?
Our position is this policy flip-flop stops.
No, your position on diesel price.
Paralysis stops.
Should subsidies continue?
The rupee will strengthen.
Should subsidies continue?
Subsidies should be brought to reasonable levels, but by better management of the economy. Not by passing on the burden to the consumer, because the consumer is already under stress. We have huge inflationary pressure on the economy. Today the need of the hour, what the FM said, is austerity. They have to look at oil substitutes. Why does this government not allow ethanol to be used, which is a clear-cut oil subsidy? What is the vested interest in not allowing ethanol? Why don't they reduce dependence on kerosene by increasing solar power? Why don't they take specific steps to improve the dollar?
If Piyush has finished, may I come in?
Manish,
If Piyush has finished, may I come in? You know, he was talking about as to why, you know, the rupee is under pressure. One of the principal reasons why the rupee is under pressure is because there's been a flight of capital from Europe to the United States, which has hardened the dollar, which has had an impact on the rupee. So therefore, you know, it is not only all internal. I'm not saying that it is also not because of internal conditions, but there is an externality that you cannot ignore. And what we are hearing from Mr. Piyush Goyal and the Bharatiya Janata Party today, Arnab, with all due respects, is that, look, we are not prepared to back you, or we are not even prepared to stand aside if you do decide to take some tough decisions in national interest. But be that as it may, you know, whatever decisions are required in order to kickstart the economy, in order to see that the sentiment comes back, in order to see that, you know, the Indian economy comes back to a high growth trajectory, I would like to assure you that the UPA government will take all those steps which are necessary in order to see that we come back to a high growth trajectory.
Not going to solve the problem.
Okay, gentlemen.
Manufacturer is in distress. Interest rates are high. The consumers are in
all
distress.
that we hear from you is criticism, Mr. Piyush Goyal. We have no prescriptions. You see, the problem is all that we hear from you is criticism. In Parliament, there is not a single prescription, or there is not a single prescriptive suggestion that you have given. Or, you know, it is all criticism. So therefore, you know, if everything that we are doing is wrong, why don't you suggest an alternative course of action? What is your roadmap? And your answer to that would be, we will unveil a roadmap when we come to power. You know, why should we pull your chestnuts out of the fire? It's not about pulling our chestnuts out of the fire. Both of us have an equal stake, you know, in the economy of this country, in the future of this country, in the future of prosperity.
Tax structure on oil.
Tonight, tonight the thing is that just to wrap up, gentlemen, I want to say one small thing. The situation tonight is this: the Aam Aadmi is crippled under inflation. Corporates are crippled under the prevailing situation. Mamata Banerjee blames the government for trying to push tough economic measures. The government blames the opposition. The opposition in turn blames Mamata Banerjee once again. And, you know, the country is pretty much the country's economy is going down the tube. And somewhere in the middle of this, I find discussing cartoons in Parliament a little ironical.
Well, in the sense, cartoons is the humor part of Parliament, Arnab. I think you need to lighten up and not make, you know, too much of a song and dance about cartoons. But again, let me reassure you, opposition or no opposition, Mr. Arnab Goswami, we will take all those decisions which are required in national interest.
Gentlemen, I think both the parties, BJP and Congress, at some point will have to work together to retrieve the situation.
We are
absolutely, I agree with you, and we expect multi-partisanship not only from
Piyush Goyal and Manish Tiwari,
but from all other stakeholders in the democratic process.
If we work holistically, we are ready to engage in a dialogue. Let's have a dialogue at high level. Let's sort out all the issues, not talk of one issue and ignore the other.
Holistically or in part, I think you will need to work together.
We are happy
The situation will force you to work together.
All of us
Thank you, Piyush, and thank you, Manish, for joining me on that debate. Thank you.